Well, we'll speak about how global cues are lining up at the start of this week. Last week, of course, the Dow closed the week flat to notch up again, so definitely a plus there. But when we're looking at all three US indices, pretty muted day in trade on Friday for US indices, and the Dow futures have opened slightly in the minus. So let's try and rewind that for you. The Dow Jones fell around a fifth of a percent in trade on Friday, largely flat day for the Dow as we would see it, and so was the S&P, largely flat. The Nasdaq gained slightly. In fact, it was up around a tenth of a percent. So positive, closed flat with a positive bias is how I would put the Nasdaq, and that's largely how US closed, and that's a positive in a certain way. Of course, the stronger monthly jobs report will spur the Fed to increase rates. So stronger than expected jobs will push the Fed to try and get more hawkish and try and crack down on inflation, focus its eyes on inflation rather than focusing on jobs. So that's definitely a plus. In fact, the US economy has added 327,000 jobs while the unemployment rate has remained unchanged at 3.6%. So largely positive on that front as well. Of course, mind you, inflation numbers for the month of June will be out on Wednesday this week. So that's what will really drive markets, especially towards the latter half of this week. So keep your eyes out on that particular number. When we're looking at a couple of specific stocks, of course, Twitter was in the news with Elon Musk withdrawing his offer to buy out Twitter, and of course the Twitter board firing back, suggesting that they will sue Musk to ensure that the agreement goes through. Clearly, that has led Twitter lower. It was down around 6% in trade on Friday. But largely, when I'm looking at where US futures are at the moment, the Dow futures are down around 0.5%. The S&P 500 futures also down around 0.2%, and they're slipping lower gradually as we speak. So that would possibly be a negative where the markets, at least this week, are concerned. When we're looking at Europe, Europe closed Friday in the green. So largely we saw the the stock 600 gain around 0.5% on Friday. The FTSE 2 was up around a tenth of a percent. But when we're looking at Asia today, it's largely a mixed picture. In fact, when we're looking at Asia currently, the Nikkei is probably the only index clinging on to gains, a solid 1% gain on the Nikkei as we speak. But other than that, we're looking at a Shanghai which is down 1/3 of a percent. The Hang Seng is down over 2.5%. The ASX 200 is down over 0.5%, and the Kospi is largely flat, down around a tenth of a percent in early trade. So that's how Asia is queuing up. Of course, negative, mind you, on the Dow futures, negative largely currently on Asia other than the Nikkei. So currently it largely looks as a soft day at the moment. When we're looking at moving quickly and shifting to commodities, when we're looking at oil, it's below that $104 a barrel mark. Mind you, it had shot up from that 102 to 104 on Friday, so 2% gains there, but that is kind of getting somewhere erased. It's down around 1% as we speak. Brent too is below that $107 a barrel mark. So positive news on oil, especially after Friday. When we're looking at gold, though, gold continues to remain under pressure as the dollar index breached the 107 mark again, and as the dollar index continues to breach, gold will continue to be under pressure, and the dollar index will be impacted even by that inflation number which will come in maybe on Wednesday. And of course, that inflation number will also determine the manner and the route which the Fed takes going forward, which will again impact gold. So keep your eyes out on gold going forward. When we're looking at bond yields, the other thing that will impact or will be impacted by inflation as well as the Fed commentary or Fed's possible outcome going forward will be bond yields, and bond yields have climbed silently. They've gone up to 3.1% is where they were on Friday, and that's where they are even at open, marginally lower, but that's where they are even at the open. This is the 10-year US bond yield. Moving quickly on to crypto, which saw quick gains on at the latter half of last week, has now fallen off. It's down around 5% from there. It's around in fact, Bitcoin is at around the $20,500 mark. That's where Bitcoin is at the moment. So keep your eyes out on cryptos as well. When we're looking at how markets are looking today, well, SGX Nifty down around 0.7%, Dow futures trending lower. Looking at Asian indices also lower and quite sharply lower, looking at the Chinese indices especially. But the Nikkei is holding on to some amount of gains. That's a positive. Largely currently we're looking at a negative start, especially for Indian indices.